Welcome to this video demonstrating how to navigate around OpenClinica and how to successfully complete data entry for the Minidex trial. First, a quick explanation of what OpenClinica is, as well as an introduction to some key terminology. OpenClinica is an open source clinical trials application for electronic data capture and data management, which is accessed via a web browser. Currently, the supported web browsers are Chrome, Firefox, and Internet Explorer. Before we log into OpenClinica, I will explain some key terminology used throughout the application. First, study. This refers to the trial, in this case Minidex. Subject. This is a participant within the study. Event or study event. This refers to a data collection point such as randomization, entry, or daily log. This will become more apparent once we open the application. CRF, this stands for Case Report Form and is a form used to collect and contain data for a study event. And finally, discrepancy notes. These are queries or annotations for data items where a value that has been entered is not as expected. Now let's look at the OpenClinica application. The URL for our test OpenClinica site, which we use for the training exercises, is in your training pack, as are your login details for the training exercises. Once you have successfully logged in, you'll be taken to the home page. At the top of the home page, you'll see the name of the study, Minidex, and the center name, in this case, Center 1. Underneath that, we have the navigation bar. First, we have the home button. Wherever you are in OpenClinica, clicking this button will bring you back to the home page for the current study or site. Depending on your role within OpenClinica, your home page will be different. In the case of the data entry person or clinical research coordinator roles, your home page displays the subject matrix. Next, we have the subject matrix button. The subject matrix is a table with event information for all subjects recruited at your site or centre. This is where you can view, enter and edit data for subjects and their events in the study. Each row represents a subject. The first column contains the study subject ID, also known as the study number. All of the subsequent columns contain the study events for the data collection points in the study. As you can see here, the study events are randomization, entry, daily log, 36 weeks PMA, discontinuation of intervention, withdrawal, 36 weeks PMA for transfer sites, and SAE. The next button on the navigation bar is the Add Subject button. You will not need to use this button because the subjects are added automatically via the Minidex randomization website as shown in the previous training video. Similarly, above the subject matrix table is another Add New Subject button. Do not click this one either. The next button on the navigation bar is the Notes and Discrepancies button. This displays a table listing all discrepancy notes for this centre's subjects, which is used to track and manage any data issues. We will cover notes and discrepancies in more detail in the next training video. The final button on the navigation bar is the Tasks menu. From here you can access various administrative processes such as changing your password. For now, we are going to concentrate on the subject matrix. At the moment, this centre only has two recruits, 10015 and 10026, so it's very easy to manage, but as the study progresses we'll have more and more subjects and they will be displayed across multiple pages. You can see at the top of the subject matrix is a drop-down list, which changes the number of subjects displayed on the page. This always defaults to 15, but you can change it to 25 or 50. To the left of this are navigation buttons. At the moment they are greyed out because we only have one page with two subjects. But once there are more than 15 subjects in the study at your centre, these buttons will turn green and you'll be able to see them to skip to the next page, the last page, and also to go back. Once you have a lot of subjects in your centre, You can also search for a study number by typing it into the grey box under the study subject ID and either pressing enter on your keyboard or clicking apply filter in the actions column. Click clear filter once you are done and you'll once again see all the subjects in the subject matrix. You'll notice the different icons displayed underneath the study events. These represent the different statuses for data entry in an event. There is a key on the left-hand side of the page for reference, but I will quickly explain the most common statuses and what they mean. First, the green completed icon with the white tick indicates data entry has been completed. For the randomization event, the data is automatically transferred from the randomization website when a recruit is successfully randomized into the trial. Secondly, we have the dark blue scheduled icon. This indicates the event has been scheduled and is ready for data entry. We automatically schedule some events when a subject is added because we are expecting data to be collected for these events for every single subject. So for Minidex, we will expect data for the entry, daily log, and 36 weeks events. Events we don't anticipate being entered for every single subject by the centre will display the light blue icon. This means that the event has not yet been scheduled and must be scheduled manually by the user before entering the data. For Minidex, this status applies to the transfer for 36 weeks form, the withdrawal and discontinuation forms, as well as the SAE form. Finally, the orange icon with the white pencil indicates that data entry has been started, but it is yet to be marked as complete. So now that I've briefly explained the different data entry statuses, I'll demonstrate how to start and complete data entry for scheduled and non-scheduled study events. To start data entry for a scheduled event, click the dark blue scheduled icon and then click View Enter Data in the yellow pop-up window. This takes you to the study event screen for the selected subject, in this case the entry form for 10026. To get started, click on the Enter Data button in the Actions column. As you can see, this will open up the CRF. CRFs are divided into multiple sections. You can see the title of the section in the grey bar above the Save and Exit buttons. To view the sections within a CRF, click the drop-down list next to the tabs above the title. In the Minidex entry form, we have 5 sections, A through D, as well as a notes section. So let's start entering data for section A, eligibility and randomization. This section is designed to mimic the randomization website as much as possible and asks the user to confirm the data entered at randomization. The questions on this section can be split into 3 categories. The first type of question is one that requires a date as a response, such as A1 and A2. These can be answered in one of 2 ways. You can either type the date into the box, making sure to follow the formatting to the right of the question. The day should be numeric, followed by a hyphen, then the first 3 letters of the month with the first capitalised, then another hyphen, succeeded by the full numeric year. Alternatively, you can click on the date widget next to the text box and select the date directly from there. Next, there are questions which are answered via options given in a drop-down menu. Simply click the box next to the question to see the list of possible responses. In the case of question A5, was the infant one of a multiple pregnancy, the options are yes or no. If I answer yes, there are 3 questions below A5 that are follow-on questions from A5 and will only be visible if A5 is yes. For example, if yes, has a sibling already been enrolled in this study? Again, this can be answered yes or no. How many babies were born is the third type of question, a free text box for the user to input. Of course, if this is not a multiple birth and I had answered A5 as no, one would simply move on to the next question, A6, and these questions would not have appeared on my screen. You may have noticed this blue circular icon with the white question mark to the right of some of the questions. These are tooltips. If you hover over them, you'll see some further information which will be helpful in answering the question. I'm going to go ahead and answer the rest of the questions in this section. As you can see, I've now filled in all of the questions to this section. Once you are happy with your answers to a particular section, press Save. If there are no problems with the data entered, i.e. all of the expected questions have been completed with valid answers, then you'll be taken to the next section, in this case, Section B, Obstetric Details. You may be wondering what the little blue flags are next to each question. These are linked to discrepancy notes, but I'll explain more about those later. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly complete the rest of the questions on this section. Again, there are some hidden fields, so these should be completed as necessary. Once all the data has been added and you are happy, click Save. You can see this time I've answered some questions that have failed validation. Any questions that have failed validation will display a red exclamation mark next to them after clicking Save. And at the top of the page, in red text, will be a red validation message explaining why this question failed validation. In this example, I have failed to enter an answer for question B3. The validation message reads, please enter a value for, was there evidence of clinical chorioamnionitis? I've also failed to specify the highest level of neonatal unit at the place of birth after stating the answer to B4 as other. So I've now got the opportunity to change those values if they are incorrect. In the case of B3, I meant to put yes, so I'll go ahead and change that. In the case of B4, let's assume I'm unable to locate the answer to this question at the moment. I can still click Save a second time, and upon doing so, the data will save. Obviously, this data will need to be chased up and amended at a later date, so OpenClinica creates a discrepancy note for any question that has failed validation and was subsequently saved. If I go back to the previous section, you can see the small blue flag has changed to a red flag. If I hover the mouse over that red flag, you'll see it gives the validation message that was previously displayed at the top of the screen. Again, I'll go into more detail about discrepancy notes and how to resolve them in the next video. Moving on to Section C, Neonatal Details, you can see there are quite a large number of questions. Some questions, such as C3, require a measurement. However, if no measurement was taken, then there's a checkbox to state the measurement was not recorded. I'll go ahead and enter data for all of these questions. You can see I've raised some more validation errors. Ideally, these would be resolved as the data is being entered, but as before, you can still click Save and raise discrepancy notes to be resolved at a later time. I'm generating and saving far more discrepancy notes than typically expected, so I can demonstrate the resolution methods in the next video. Where possible, it always makes sense to try and resolve these errors as they happen, rather than generating discrepancy notes. The validation rules check a range of things for each question. For example, have required questions been answered? For range values, does the data fall into an expected range? And in the case of the entry form, do the answers given match those provided at randomization? Section D, Maternal Details, contains just one further question. I'll enter a value for this field and click Save. Once you have entered all the data and reached the final tab, you'll see a Notes section where you can enter any relevant information not reported in the previous tabs, and most importantly, there is a Mark CRF Complete checkbox. If you tick this box, a pop-up will appear. Click OK if you're happy with the data entered, and then click Save. You'll be taken back to the study event page for the subject, where you'll notice that the status shows the green completed icon, indicating that data entry has been completed for this event. You'll also see the username of the person who completed data entry in the initial data entry column and not applicable in the double data entry column, because this form is only being single entered, as is the case for all forms in the Minidex study. If you click the subject matrix, you'll now see that this event is marked as complete. The next form we will look at is the daily log form. As this is also a scheduled event, we can click the scheduled icon and begin entering data as we did with the entry form. Given the daily log form is completed on a paper form over the intervention period of the trial, i.e. the first 16 days, it is important to note at this point that the data entered in OpenClinica should be entered exactly as it appears on the paper form to ensure that the ECRF matches the source document. As you can see, this form largely consists of a table with 16 rows, one for each day of the trial period, mimicking the paper daily log form. Therefore, one should complete the ECRF after the paper form has been fully populated. If your centre is taking blood and ET secretion samples for cytokine analysis, your daily log form will look slightly different. This additional data can be entered in section C of the ECRF, which we will look at shortly. As this is quite a hefty table, I'm going to rush ahead and fill in some sample data. The accountability log questions monitoring vial usage are beneath the table on the ECRF. So you can see I've now populated this table exactly as one would expect the paper form to be filled in. Days 1 through 16 in the day column, with the dates matching the expected administration dates. Doses have not been given on days 11, 13 and 15. I have also given an intubation status for the baby on every single day, and indicated each row was double signed by a nurse. One quick thing to note at this point is that while most validation messages will raise discrepancy notes in the dataset, others will instead trigger an email to be sent to a specified email address. They do look like discrepancy notes in that there's an exclamation mark next to the question and red text appears to the top of the page. These emails will be sent to the Trial Coordinating Centre when they would like to be informed immediately of a response on a form, and they are sent when particular values are given for certain questions, such as on this form if a transfer site is entered on the daily log form. The email is sent once the user clicks Save for the second time. No discrepancy note is generated because it is not a discrepancy that needs resolving within the dataset. I don't want an email to be triggered as part of this demonstration, so I'm going to go ahead and change my answer here so that the email won't be sent. But as a data entry user, you should enter exactly what is on the paper form into OpenClinica so that where appropriate, emails will be sent to the relevant person, informing them of this information. Again, once you are happy with the data entered, click Save to move to the next section. Moving on to section B, this is where you'll be asked if any additional intubation logs were filled in on page 4 of the daily log form. If no, you can move on to section C by saving. If additional intubation logs were entered, a table will appear where you can enter the day, date, and extubation or intubation times. Click Add to generate additional rows before saving. Section C will ask if the participant is part of the cytokine study. If your site is not participating in this, simply select No and move on to the final section of the form. If your site is participating in this sub-study, and this participant has had samples collected, click Yes and a table will appear to confirm the dates the samples were taken, as well as a couple of checkboxes to confirm what was taken. Once completed, click Save to continue on to the Notes section, and then complete the CRF as before. The 36-week form is next. As you can see, there are 2 events for collecting the follow-up data at 36 weeks PMA. The first 36-week event should be completed for all subjects by the recruiting site, as this covers follow-up data from the point of randomization. Even if a baby is transferred during the study, this form should be completed for the time period that the baby was at your site. As before, I'm going to rush through this form, entering some sample data before marking it as complete and returning to the subject matrix. Now we'll look at entering data for an unscheduled event, for example the 36-week transfer form. If a baby is transferred to a continuing care site at any point in the trial period, the hospital the baby is transferred to will receive a paper transfer form to complete and send back to the recruiting centre. In theory, babies could be transferred multiple times during these periods, so it is possible there will be more than one transfer form for a particular baby. If I click the blue icon under the 36-week for transfer sites event, I can see Schedule where I used to see View Enter Data. Click this and you'll be taken to the Schedule study event for this subject. You then simply need to click the Proceed to Enter Data button and you'll be on this familiar study event page for the subject. Now the event is scheduled, I can continue as before and click the Enter Data icon. I'll quickly complete data entry on the 36-week transfer form, as it is similar to the daily log in the sense that one should enter the data exactly as it appears on the paper form. However, because the source data is coming from an external source, there are no questions hidden from the user, as contradicting information may be filled in on the paper form, and it is important that this is recorded in the dataset so that any issues or discrepancies can be resolved with the continuing care site via phone or by email. This time during data entry, I'm going to stop at section C and exit because we're going to imagine that I've urgently had to rush away from my desk. Once I return and go back to the subject matrix, you can see the icon for the 36-week form is the orange Data Started icon. To continue entering data, click the icon, click View Enter Data, and click the Continue Entering Data icon. You can see that all of the saved data is still present on the first two sections, and I can jump to the third section and continue entering as though I'd never been away. I'll continue to enter data from section C onwards. Again, once you are happy that all the data has been entered correctly, mark the CRF as complete, click OK on the pop-up window, save it and return to the subject matrix. I'm now going to enter another 36-week transfer form as I have received a completed version of this form back from a continuing care site after the baby was transferred for a second time. To enter a second transfer form from the subject matrix, simply click the 36 weeks transfer form icon and you'll see a new option, Add Another Occurrence, has appeared. Clicking this will take you to the Schedule event page again, and upon clicking Proceed to Enter Data, the user will be able to enter a second transfer form. I'll just complete this very quickly and save it. On returning to the subject matrix, you can see there is a ×2 next to the event, informing you and the coordinating centre that multiple transfer forms have been completed for the participant. We haven't looked at the discontinuation, withdrawal or SAE events as part of this video, but they should be scheduled and data entered where relevant. That concludes the OpenClinica navigation and data entry section of the training for the Minidex trial. The next video in this series will look at managing and resolving discrepancy notes within OpenClinica. Thanks for watching.